Hello, I'm Dan Rogers, and today we are here with Mary Bralley, who is running for the Amarillo College Board of Regents. Mary, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's tell the voters why you want to be on the Amarillo College Board of Regents.
Well, I want to be on the Board of Regents because I believe in education. I believe, it starts early. I've served with Region 16, early childhood intervention, learned about how important it is to start when they're babies, really. I mean, your brain is a sponge really early on, and you can start teaching kids. And then, of course, with my current job with being the executive director of Window on a Wider World, we see pre-K through 8th grade students and provide them with experiential learning experiences. And these are experiences that they can learn about career awareness. They learn about why geometry is important in everyday occupations and why they need to know it. I've helped with Los Barrios de Amarillo, which we served the middle school and high school kids and gave scholarships to high school kids that are wanting to go to college. And so now I just want to help at the college level. And it's really important to me to help at this level because I was one of those students who I just wasn't a good learner in the classroom. I didn't have the experiential learning opportunities that today's kids have. I didn't have the parents who went to college or even graduated high school. They went to middle school, and so I didn't have them talking to me about how important education is. And then you fast forward, I graduate high school, and I found myself going to have a baby. And so then you get stuck working and trying to make ends meet. I was a single parent. And then fast forward again, life goes by so fast, right? And my daughter is in middle school and says, "Mom, I'm not going to go to college. You didn't go." And that gutted me because I knew at that point college was, or getting a degree or certification or some type of training was important. And I guess because in my mind it was important and I knew it, I guess I thought that she knew it too. So when she said that, I just thought, I'm doing such a disservice to her not talking about it. So I went to college as an adult. I got my start at Amarillo College, and I was the average student that's still there today, the single, female who has a couple of kids and has a couple of jobs and is just trying to make it. And the reason it's so important to stand by those students is because it did take me a while. It took me a few years to get my associate's degree. And then I went on and got my bachelor's from Wayland. But then my daughter learned the value of education. She went to college. She is now an operating room nurse and gets to travel. She's a travel nurse. And now her son, my grandson, is graduating high school next month. Well, this month really, and he's going to college. And it's changed the trajectory and how we feel and value education, because now it's just not even a question. Now it's, oh, I'm going to college. There's just, no second thought. That's just an expectation now. And so, but I also know that it's very hard. And so I want to be there for the students that are having challenges like I had. It's easy to go to college, but it's really hard to graduate, especially whenever you have so many barriers in front of you, and sometimes you just want to give up. And sometimes I did, and that's why it took me a few years to finally complete it. But I want to be there for the students. I want to listen to, the challenges that they're having. I don't think that they've changed too much in all of this time, and want to be there and see how we can make things better. Amarillo College is great, but, you can always be better.
So what do you think are some of the challenges facing Amarillo College?
I think it's definitely completion rates. I hear that completion rates are up. They're up to 48%, which sounds great from where they were 5 years ago, but that's not even half. And so why aren't those kids graduating? Why aren't they completing? What can we do better to help them get across that line? Not get to the line and then stop, but get across the line. I want to hear from them, and it takes mentoring. And kids don't like the word mentorship. They don't understand it. They don't want to have to answer the phone when you call. I found my success with my high school students that went to college from Los Barrios was that I was very involved in their lives. I have them on group chats. I sat down at the coffee shop or at Chick-fil-A, or, you have to entice students to come talk to you. I offered free merch if I was at WT or AC, and just to get them to the table, to communicate with them, having them get to know me, trust me, and then ask for help. And I feel that, there's no representation of the average student, I feel like. Or if there is, I just feel like I can add to that representation.
So what is the primary role of the trustees?
The primary role is, oversight. You want to be you want to make sure that the college is running operationally as fiscally, good as possible. Obviously, oversight of the president, who is new, so I'm really excited about the possibility of working with somebody new who has new ideas and being part of that. And so it's a lot of oversight, but not to do the job, but just to make sure that we're making the best choices possible. But again, I want to do a little bit differently, maybe by being part of the student and by engaging with our students.
So the primary role really of the trustees is to oversee the president or the superintendent. What do you call them at Amarillo College?
President.
The president?
Yeah.
And to hire and fire them, right?
Yes, I guess so.
So the president's accountable to you.
Yes.
And the reason it's set up that way is because it's an elected position. And so that gives you the authority to represent the people.
That's right.
And to choose the president.
Mm-hmm.
And then to oversee the budget.
Oversee the budget. That is correct.
And to make sure they're spending the money wisely.
Absolutely.
And not wasting it.
Right.
Have you looked at the AC budget?
Oh, there's a lot to it. It's very big. I'm comfortable with budgets because of my job, of course. I've always volunteered at nonprofits and understand budgets. Now, the Amarillo College budget is obviously a lot bigger, than what a nonprofit is, but I feel comfortable looking at it, asking the questions, and, from an outsider that hasn't been part of this, maybe I'll see some different things that others kind of overlook or think that that's okay. But, it's good to ask questions why you're spending the way you are and could it be spent better. And so I'm looking forward to being able to, look at that in that capacity as well. I also served on AISD School Board of Trustees. And so that was obviously a big budget as well. Not as big as Amarillo College, but still, you have to look at where expenses are going, what you're cutting, why you're cutting it. Are you going to regret cutting here and adding here? I mean, you just have to look at all of the sides. So.
How big is the Amarillo College budget?
Oh gosh, I don't know off the top of my head how big it is. I didn't keep that number in my head, but it's big.
Would you be for going to like zero-based budgeting, so they had to start over every year in every department?
I don't know. I've never looked at a zero-based budget, so I'm not privy to how that would work. But that kind
basically, it's real simple. Rather than giving people what they had last year, they have to come to the board and propose what they need for this year and start over because things change.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's a big problem with government is that it's just a way to grow government, right? If you don't do that, there's no need to justify.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So to me, to represent the taxpayers, we need people that will say we need to start over every year with every department, make that department head justify the money he's asking for.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that might be something. I definitely am not one to say this is how we need to start doing it. I know that, if I come in, all being new, you have to sit and wait and see why things are done the way they are, what's working, what's not, before you make a decision like that. I can't just say that I'll go in and this is how it's going to be. I
Well,
have
that's not how you do it, but you just
Right.
say, ask the question, why don't we move in that direction?
Mm-hmm. And
Because
that's
nobody
right.
wants
You
to be
ask
accountable. They're going to resist it, right?
everybody.
Because it
Nobody
would take
likes
some effort.
change.
Nobody wants to put forth effort. They want the money, but they don't want to have to do the work.
Yeah, I'll just have to see, but that's definitely something I am open to looking at for sure.
Well, and the other thing I guess that y'all do is y'all set the tax rate because you're a taxing entity.
Mm-hmm.
So you're taxing everybody that owns property in the Amarillo College district,
Right.
which is a big district, right?
Yes.
Now, do you know how big the Amarillo College district is?
I don't know the
Boundaries?
I mean, I know once you get outside of the area, basically how I think about it in my head is if you're on well water, that's outside of the Amarillo College area. If you're not inside the city limits, right?
See, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, don't they have a campus in like Dumas?
Well, they do, yes. But what I'm saying, I guess, is I just know like for voting, they're not able to come vote. And I know that they pay taxes, though.
See, I don't.
So I don't
That
understand why
shouldn't be
they.
the case.
Well, I didn't think so either. So I'm not really sure why they were turned away.
I've glanced at the code a little bit because I'm in a issue in another part of the state where they're being taxed on a bond issue, but they aren't allowed to vote.
Right.
But it's because they're a sub district, right? And I haven't really taken the time to figure all that out, and nobody knows, which is really weird. The people at the college don't know. The people in the county don't know. The people at the Secretary of State's don't know. And I don't even think the bond board at the AG's office knows. It's all this nuanced stuff. But to me, if you're paying taxes, you should be allowed to vote. Whether they can say, well, it doesn't benefit you because we're just building a new building in Amarillo.
Right.
Well, that's going to benefit them
Yeah.
or harm them.
Right. Yeah.
So to me, if you have the ability to tax, that's a huge responsibility.
Absolutely, it is.
And
Absolutely, I agree.
to me, if things are run properly, shouldn't taxes go down over time?
Well,
Why do they always go up?
That's a good question. I feel like we have low taxes. You always hear about it. But is that really a good thing? Because how we have the lowest taxes, they always say we're lower than Midland. We're lower
who's
than
they?
Leadville. I'm sorry?
Who says that?
I mean, I just hear it all the time
But from who?
From city council, from the mayor, those offices.
I
are
think
always
you'll hear
talking
it from the
about that.
profiteers.
Oh, yeah.
There's a huge cabal that makes a fortune on bonds and buildings. They could care less about educating the kids,
Oh, and that's what's so important.
but they're making all the money, right?
And because our kids,
But it's all under the table that people can't see.
yeah.
It's the lobbyists, it's the builders, it's the people that have the supply houses. And it's a huge number of people in the community that are pushing these things because they're making a fortune on them. But statistics show that money isn't what makes people learn. Fancy facilities, in fact, the studies that I have show that the more money that school districts spend, the lower their scores of their students.
I feel like, the way to teach students is that you have to figure out how everybody learns differently. That's what I love about my job now. We're doing experiential learning. I wasn't able to learn.
Now, what is experiential learning?
Experiential learning is whenever you're taking what you're learning in the classroom, but in a real life experience.
Okay, yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I was not a good student in math. And back in the day, you had a chalkboard, a green chalkboard. You had to put the math problem on the chalkboard and figure it out in front of everybody. And I couldn't. And so then, the teacher gives you a little bit of time to solve the problem. You turn around and show your work, and I couldn't. And that teacher said, why don't you know how to do this? We've been studying this for 6 weeks. Go sit down. And then, of course, you're humiliated. But if I had a opportunity to see how that relates to real life, maybe I would have been interested in math. Maybe I would have said, oh, now I get it. Whenever I bring kids into the Globe News Center, where my office is, I talk about how math and science built the Globe News Center and talk to them about the geometry involved, because they don't think about that. There's not that connection made. So when you're talking about, students not learning, it's because every student doesn't learn the same. Every student can't just read a book or, listen to a lecture from the teacher. They have to go out and experience it. I don't think that that's just in middle school, elementary, middle school, high school. It's at the college level too.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, of course, that's how I learned everything, because I'm not formally educated, but I had to figure everything out.
Right.
Right.
But you had somebody
Now
to
it's
take
so
your
like,
hand
I wish
and
I had
show
all this
you.
stuff, because I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and we had to fix everything. You didn't call somebody to come fix your tractor, or your combine, or your bulldozer, or whatever.
You have to fiddle with it.
We had to figure it
until-
out, and we couldn't get the part. We had to make the part.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we had milling machines and lathes, and we would forge the steel, melt it, make the part.
Yeah, figure
For
out
nothing.
what type of steel. I mean, this is what I teach
Yeah.
kids. The shell inside the performance hall is suspended. And so we talk about the cabling system. And I talk to them about that because they don't understand there's different types of metals. And I ask them, can you crunch up aluminum foil and suspend this? And no, it's too light. Well, what about a hanger? And so you start talking to them about that and how to figure it out. And that's exactly what I tell them.
Yeah.
You have to fiddle with it until you figure it out.
Well, they need to put them at the water plant and explain to them how to, then let them figure out how to calculate flow
Right.
and diameter and how much water can go through a pipe at a different velocity, and
Exactly.
how a size of a pipe determines the volume of water that can flow through
Because
it.
if you're reading that and you're seeing all
Yeah,
these
it's-
little things, it
it's
just
not
doesn't
tangible.
make sense.
It's not
As a
tangible.
matter of fact, one of the things that we do at my job is called the Science Collaborative. And it's all about science. It's for fifth graders. And one of the rotations is Pantex, and they talk about liquid, solids, and gas. Well, I learned about that. I don't know that I retained it, but watching the ladies demonstrate how gases can turn into liquids and liquids can turn into solids, and seeing it happen in front of my eyes and explaining and having them do a discussion, question and answer. The kids were engaged. I even learned, and I thought, these girls are good. They should have their own show, because even as an adult, I was like, now I get it. And maybe I got it back then and forgot about it. But, it just made it fun. It was interesting. It was engaging, and I learned. And so, yeah, you're right. Just everything can be a learning opportunity for kids of any age. And so I always tell people, I'd invite you to come to the Globe News Center. I know I can teach you something.
I need to be.
Agriculture. I bring in agriculture. I bring in health sciences, acoustics. Kids don't know that sound is a science. And even adults, they're like, I never thought about it that way. We're always learning. It's just we have to figure out different ways to teach that interest the person.
The problem is we gain all this knowledge, and then we fall over dead. Once we figure it all out.
I know, as you get older.
The question
you
is,
start
where does
thinking
all
about
that information and knowledge go? That's what I've always wondered. When you
Well, it depends on the information and knowledge, because sometimes it goes out the other ear, right?
yeah.
What sticks?
Yeah. So do you have a website that people can get hold of you? Or
I do. It's Mary Bralley 4AC.
how do you spell
.com.
How do you spell your last name?
It's Bralley. It's the weirdest last name I
It's
know.
Mary, Mary,
Bralley FORAC. Not the number 4, the word 4.
.com.
.com.
All right. All right. We'll learn more about her. Check out her website, and elections in a couple of days.
2 days.
So get out and vote. No matter who you
Please.
vote for,
That's right.
show up and vote. You can go to our AmarilloGOP.com website where we have all the interviews of everybody that was interested in showing up, and check them out, watch the interviews, and you decide. Thanks for coming.